Hello, fellow paint wranglers. Gina DeLuca here. I have 18 by 24 canvas here. I'm going to be doing basically the same technique I've been doing, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've been getting lots of interesting effects from this particular pouring technique. I'm going to change it up a little bit today though, to see if I can create a slightly different effect. Colors. Quinacridone Magenta. Prism Violet. We have Naphthol Crimson mixed with a bit of the Cadmium Yellow Light Hue. And then we have the Cadmium Yellow Light Hue by itself. Dioxazine Purple. And Ultramarine Blue. Okay, so let's get our cup ready. So 15 ounces-ish is enough to cover this canvas, but I will be laying down a base coat and I will be stretching the paint a lot. So if it's a little shorter than the 15 ounces, then we'll still be okay. I will be basically doing the same order that I have been doing. Let me get these in the proper order. I'll be going from darkest to lightest. The Dioxazine is a much darker purple than the Prism Violet. Here's the Prism Violet, and I'm pouring it down the side of the cup in order to keep the layers separated. The paint is mixed with 2 parts Floetrol, a tiny bit of alcohol to pop out the bubbles, and I mix with, this is a 10% Floetrol and the rest is water. So 90% water, 10% Floetrol, and I add this to consistency. And the consistency is very thin. I don't know if you can tell, if you can see that, but it's pretty darn thin. My favorite color for pouring, the Quinacridone Magenta. When I've been doing this particular style, the magenta doesn't always show up like gangbusters, but it mixes well with many of those colors, so I wouldn't quite call it neutral, but it's pretty agreeable, unlike green. I find green to be completely unagreeable. Disagreeable? Whatever it is. I don't like it, it doesn't like me. And I'm a redhead. I own 2 pieces of green clothing. Okay, so we have, yeah, it's about 12 ounces. That will be fine. Because again, we're going to be stretching that paint. lay down our base coat. This is a very thin layer, or I shouldn't say thin layer, but the paint is thin because you want your paint that's on top of it to be able to slide around. If it's too thick, it won't slide as easily, and you'll actually see the base coat fighting the colors on top. You can see it pushing back the paint when the paint should just be gliding over it. And this does not have to be a perfect layer because we will be painting over top of it. But of course you want to get it as even as possible. Okay, so we have our base coat down. Get out of the way. All right, let's get to pouring. The fun part. Okay, so as you can tell, instead of just pouring it straight into a puddle or going straight down the canvas like I've done, I've kind of just gone slowly back and forth. We'll see what happens. Let me pop some of these bubbles. Let's get to stretching, shall we? Most of my weight seems to be down here, so I'm just going to start on this end. And I see a little chunk of something here, it seems. Whatever that is, I can't seem to reach it. I'm gonna have to keep stretching and get to it. My little corner catcher to try to keep as much paint on the canvas as possible. I need to get myself a fresh one because this one has been used a few times. It's a little bit warped, but it beats nothing at all. So you can see, because all of my weight is now at this end of the canvas, I'm not losing a bunch of stuff on this side. Controlling your paint, controlling the weight of it, centering it before you change directions really helps you keep your composition where you want it. Keep you from losing the parts you don't want to lose. Ah, gotcha. Only the Lord knows what that was. Had to come from the paint because I strained my Floetrol. So the more I move this around, the more cells are going to pop up. And I kind of want to stretch this little beanstalk thingy, whatever that is. I'm not actually tilting to dump paint right now. I am just moving and stretching. Well, I don't love it when the white pops up. But if I were to use a darker color underneath, that would mute the colors that you put on top of it. So what I can do after this dries, I can make a wash with paint, just make it more of a glaze and just go over those cells with a color that works for that area. So like down here, it would just be maybe lighter shades of purple, or I could even just put in magenta. And the cells will keep popping up on this for quite some time. I've noticed that as it's drying, there is definitely action that continues. Okay, so this is the mostly dry piece. There's a little spot right there. You can see it's still wet. And that'll be more the color that it will be when it is varnished. It always looks darker when it dries. And you can see a few more cells popped up, but I knew that I wasn't going to get a lot in this area because it was still very thick there. And to get these cells with no silicone, you really need to stretch the paint. These areas with the white that I don't love, I could just create a glaze or a wash with some glazing medium and paint and just change the tone there. All right, well, I learned something. Hope you did too. And please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And join our group on Facebook. And go make some art.